Yo, yo.
Yo, yo, yo.
Happy Black History Month.
Yep.
History Month.
Yeah, this is the first time we're getting together in the Black History Month. How's everybody doing?
Super awesome. Making Black history.
That's right. I know that's right.
Yep. Straight up Black History Month. So we're talking about politics on Fleek. Bait and switch.
Mm-hmm.
The old okey doke. All right, before we get into it, let's get into this housekeeping, Yamoya.
Yeah, so if you still would like some show intros, outros, voiceover, script copy, 15 and 30-second promos, send us an email to 8OCAmediagroup@gmail.com. That's a 2 business day turnaround.
All right. Okay. So up first we have it's pretty sad. Deputy Carter here out of Louisiana. It looks like he was just fed up with racism. Says police officer dies by suicide after lambasting police brutality. you know, when I was looking at this story, I'm like, suicide or suicided? Because there were not a lot of details when I went and read the story. But let's take a look here. A 43-year-old deputy with Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office in Louisiana died by suicide earlier this week after posting videos on social media in which he spoke out about system that does not give a damn about people like him. Deputy Clyde Kerr III took his own life outside the sheriff's office on Monday, reports the advocate, after filming himself saying he could no longer abide by police killings. Have either of you seen any of his social media posts
Mm-hmm.
lambasting?
No, I haven't seen any. How about you, Jamoya?
I have not.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
might
that's
go
unfortunate.
check him out after this, but
And
that
rest in
is
peace.
unfortunate. Rest
Yeah,
in
may
peace.
rest in power. That's really unfortunate because brothers and sisters who do fight, for to keep peace and law enforcement, like we really need them, you know, and we really need them to be, if they're able to contribute and to be alive. Like I wish the brother. I mean, he was breaking some good wisdom down. You know what I mean? And I wish he would have kept his efforts
Yeah.
going and maybe just been like, you know what, I just can't do this anymore within law enforcement. But maybe there's some other path that he could have taken instead of law enforcement, of some sort, some type of activism, advocacy role that he could have taken. Because the stuff that he was saying, I mean, as far as what I did see, was pretty powerful. you know I think if he did have more of an reparationist understanding, or black agenda, black political understanding, um I think he would have probably been able to further navigate, because some of the things he was saying, I was just like, yeah, maybe if he had a little bit more awareness, um he may have been like, you know what, I want to do this. But yeah, Kim, I mean, you bring up a good point. I mean, oftentimes, people start, advocating, you know, and like it was a suicide. It's like, that brother didn't seem suicidal to me, but
Yeah.
hey, you never know.
And it
Yeah.
was, if anything, it was going to be career suicide at very least, because it sounds like and it seems like once you start to speak against that blue wall of silence and that blue code of silence, your career prospects, your career path, your career potential is very, very limited. And one thing I think this also highlights, in addition to you know what some of the non-white officers actually think about what they do and how they do it and what's been going on, but this also highlights the mental health impacts and trauma of this system, on anyone anywhere at any part of the system itself. So rest in peace, rest in power to him. Much condolences to his family.
Yes, definitely. And Moria, you're absolutely right. We need good black officers, especially in a deep Confederate South state like Louisiana. Okay, so what do we have
Oh,
going
yeah.
on in our state here of California?
Uh,
Oh,
King, before we actually start this, I think there's one more thing that we should definitely, unless you want to do it at the end, but I wanted to also give our condolences and a rest in power to here, I'll post. Or you want to get it? We keep going
you
back.
got it. You
We're gonna get it.
Ah.
Yes, family. Mary Wilson.
Yes.
She's now an ancestor. Supremes, original Supremes. And obviously we know Cecily Tyson, one of the great actresses of all time.
Mm.
Both are now ancestors. And so they're definitely going to be, helping us on our journey towards where we're trying to get to in the living state. So peace out to those two beautiful and powerful goddesses and queens.
Yes.
Definitely. I'll say to the ancestors.
Ashe.
Okay. So, Chris, we have some updates on the AB 3121 task force. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we do. We do. We got some really awesome updates. Two task force members have been selected. Two task force members officially have been selected. There was some news about a week or so ago of two selections to the task force, 2 of the 9 members. And so for those who don't know, AB 3121 is a state law that creates a task force to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans who descend from U.S. slavery here in the state of California. And the bill, the law went into effect officially June of this year, and within, I want to say, sorry, January of this year, excuse me, June, January 1st. And the first task force members, and I'm saying hey to the folks in the chat, hey, Citizen Edge, hey, Theo, the first task force members have been selected, the first 2 have been selected just, 4 or 5 weeks into the new year. We've got 1 state senator who was selected, and then also one local city council person who was selected as well. We've got State Senator Stephen Bradford, who was selected to the task force. And keep in mind, there are the number of state legislators that can be selected to the task force is limited to, I think, 4, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll confirm that for you all, or anyone who has that confirmation. Please feel free to put it in the chat, in the comments, and shout out to everybody in the comments as well. But one state senator has been selected, Mr. Stephen Bradford, and then from San Diego, you've got a local city council person who I actually met. I want to say back in October of this year. Had the pleasure of meeting her, and she was a totally awesome person. She actually came to a community event that I was helping to put on here in the state of California, and she was super awesome. Just a great person, and I want to say her name correctly here, so that I don't mispronounce it, because I've been mispronouncing this name. I want to say for the past few weeks now. So it's Margaret Tuppe, if I'm not mistaken, Tuppe. And so thank you. She was totally awesome. Met her, great person. She actually sat in the event, was on the panel, then went and sat in the audience and was just sort of listening as just like a regular person like you or I. So she was super awesome. Big shout out to her, and looking forward to what she can bring to the task force. 2 African Americans, from what I can tell so far. These are the first 2 of 9 to be selected to the AB 3121 task force.
Okay, good. And for the man who got us to the AB 3121 law, Newsom, looks like there's a recall effort out with him. Now, how would that work? If it does go to recall, it goes to vote when?
Yeah, so this is interesting. There are over 1 million signatures to recall Governor Gavin Newsom, and there's actually a story out today, out in Politico, where President Joe Biden is actually, speaking against any effort to recall Gavin Newsom. And there are over 1 million signatures. Like I said, if this were to go any, if this were to actually result in any official recall of the governor. If I'm not mistaken, the earliest that there would be any recall election would be either late this year or sometime next year. So that's the earliest that this would or could happen if it were to happen. I have my doubts as to whether or not this is actually going to go forward, to be honest with you, and that's because yes, there is 1 million signatures for sure. There are also, 40 million people here in the state of California. And my guess is that there are more people here who want the governor to remain in office than want him gone. Like I said, Biden is on record just as of today saying, "Hey, we need Newsom to stay in office." And from what I understand from the organizing going on the ground right now, there are a bunch of Democratic groups that are actually working hard to prevent the recall, and if there is a recall, to make sure that the governor stays in office. But I have my doubts as to whether or not this will actually be successful.
Okay. And just really be quickly before we move on, looking at the coronavirus updates. California case overview looks like we're at just over 44,000 deaths in California, 463,000 in the United States, and 2.331 million worldwide. All right. In other political shenanigans, have you heard about this one? Ted Cruz versus Thomas Greenfield. Ted Cruz delays vote of Joe Biden's UN nominee Linda Thomas Greenfield over China comments. The senator cited a speech Thomas Greenfield gave at a Confucius Institute in 2019, saying both the US and China could be positive influences in Africa. The UN ambassador nominee tried to walk those comments back during her confirmation hearing last week, calling China a strategic adversary.
Yeah, this is and by the way, folks, sorry, I have to make a quick correction. I misspelled the name of the second task force member to the reparations task force here in California. It's STEP, not TOOP, it's STEP. So it's Monica Montgomery STEP out of San Diego, District 4 in San Diego. Again, great person. I had a chance to meet her in person, but it's Monica Montgomery STEP. So I wanted to give her just due. I didn't want to mess her name up. So to the Linda Thomas Greenfield controversy, if you can call it that. Right now, Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, former presidential candidate, arch enemy during the Republican primary to Donald Trump back in the 2015-2016 race. He is, like you said, holding up her nomination over some, I think, comments that are not very, very serious, to be honest with you. And it's really about our position as a country relative to China. And I don't think his holding up her nomination will be ultimately successful. I believe she will be affirmed and confirmed ultimately. But this is typical Ted Cruz, pretty much. And the comments that she made are not serious enough to threaten her confirmation.
So he's just digging up dirt. I'm like, yeah, it didn't sound like what she said was
Yeah, it's not that big a deal.
to me. So, okay. And in other racist news, oh, nah, this first. That too, but this first. It looks like students at Utah school allowed to opt out of Black History Month activities. North Ogden, Utah, a charter school in northern Utah that is allowing parents to opt students out of Black History Month curriculum, has sparked a debate over if parents should have the option. Maria Montessori Academy director Micah Hirokawa said on the school's Facebook page on Friday that he reluctantly sent out a letter explaining families are allowed to exercise their civil rights to not participate in Black History Month at the school, the Stanford Examiner reported. Hirokawa said few families asked not to participate in instruction related to Black History Month, but he declined to say how many parents or their reasons for making the decision. He says that that really saddens and disappoints him.
Wow. Uh, how is it civil rights for you to not participate in Black History Month? That's the first thing that stood out to me. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I think there's been an update to the story. I think I believe as of today that the school has reversed its position and now is not allowing kids to opt out of Black History Month. You know, you don't allow anybody to opt out of any other month. You know, and it's really weird to see somebody trying to use the language of civil rights to say you can do something that's sort of anti-civil rights, right? So,
Right, and it's only 1 month a year, and it is American history, so there's really no
I
getting
know.
around it. They
Yeah.
should be learning that history. And also, my question is, are parents allowed to opt their students out of other curriculums that are
Nope.
being forced on the children these days? And I won't go into, which ones, but some definitely come to mind.
I will. Why not? Open the can of worms. Why shouldn't we? I mean, look, let's be honest with you. I mean, we're talking about the presidents, the founding fathers, right? I mean, they were known to have slaves, but I don't know about y'all, but I don't recall them meaning the public school system ever mentioning, you know, even Abraham Lincoln, owning slaves, George Washington owning slaves. I mean, I just don't remember them saying that until I got older. I don't know about y'all.
Mm-mm.
Nope.
I remember him chopping down the cherry tree.
Yep.
That's about it.
So yeah, definitely had to note that. So I'm sure, people can spend, 28, 30, 31 days to, indulge themselves in Black History Month.
Right.
Yeah.
It's American history, and it's
Right.
part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
All right.
Weird.
What else do we have going on here? Chris, did you have a chance to take a look at anything that was said on the American Rescue Plan? Let's take a look at this little video on what Jan Psaki had to say.
I have a couple of items at the top just to go over and update you all on. First, let's see. At 3 p.m. this afternoon, Vice President Harris and Secretary of the Treasury Janet Yellen will hold a virtual roundtable with participants from local Black chambers of commerce from across the country to discuss the importance of passing the American Rescue Plan. Local chamber representatives will share on-the-ground experiences during this crisis, ask the Vice President and Secretary questions, and discuss how small businesses in their community are faring right now and what they need.
Yeah, bro. So I got a quick question. Did that I guess meeting ever happen? Did you hear about that at all, or?
That's the first time I'm hearing about a meeting with the chambers, with the Black chambers, even though I know there were, so the black chambers I know, and I'm talking specifically the ones in California, they are in some type of regular contact with folks inside of the White House. This was true during the Trump administration, and I have first hand knowledge of that. I witnessed that personally. I wasn't in any of the conversations with the White House, but I was fairly close to some black chamber folks here in California who were. So that's pretty regular though. That's a a common thing that does happen. So I'm not surprised that there would be a meeting with the black chambers and the White House, especially this new White House, and especially given the really tough, I mean, tough is an understatement, dire condition that black folks, black businesses in particular, are in right now. So I'm not surprised that these conversations are happening. I am not 100% confident, to be honest with you, with all due respect to the chambers of commerce, the black chambers in particular, the general chamber of commerce, that national general chamber of commerce, I have some problems with, to be honest with you, because I don't think they represent the interests of black businesses as well as they probably could, and I'd be interested in potentially helping them do that, but right now I think there's some room for improvement. As far as the black chambers go, I have to be 100% honest. I'm not 100% confident that those entities can fairly articulate to the federal government, to the White House, what the needs of black businesses are. I'm not 100% confident of that, and I think some can and will, but I'm not really, again, not 100% confident, because it sounded like, from what Jen Psaki was just saying, that what part of that meeting was about was the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and others telling these businesses telling these chambers how important it is to pass the American Rescue Plan, which we'll talk about in a minute. And yeah, in the American Rescue Plan, there are some good things that could possibly at some point aid black businesses in particular, but I think there is again room for improvement, both within the advocacy that these organizations will be doing, and then also within the American Rescue Plan itself. And we can talk more about that when we get to it.
All right, well, let's get to it. Let's see what Madam Vice President has to say about it. From software to healthcare, restaurants to manufacturers, black business are small, large, and everything in between. And they are critical to our economy and communities. We need to pass the American Rescue Plan so they get the help that they deserve.
Wrong. First of all, that's wrong.
Yeah, so my question on that is, what does classify as a large business? What are some black-owned large businesses?
So let's keep it. Let's just be honest. 95% of black-owned businesses have no employees other than the owner. Okay, 95% of black-owned businesses have no employees other than the owner. Okay, so when she's talking about black businesses are big, small, and in between, it's no. Mostly, we're very small. We're actually micro businesses. With either you're the only employee you have, or you have between 1 and 5 employees. The federal government has a very skewed way, very bad way of defining what is a small business versus what is a medium-sized business versus what is a large business. Generally, they use 2 standards. For example, if you're looking at the SBA, the Small Business Administration, they use 2 standards. One is a number of employees standard, and then one is a revenue standard. According to the SBA, generally, your business can have 500 or less employees and still be called a small business. Okay, so you could have 400 employees, 350 employees, and still be called a small business. that is wrong. I think that has to be changed. But what the effect of that is if you put out a program for small businesses, then you have businesses with employees up to 500 get that small business money, whereas the really small businesses, the micro businesses, as we call them, our businesses mostly are competing with those other small businesses to get that money, and so we get less of that money, just because the pool of applicants generally is larger. Plus all the other problems that we come into into that market with. So I just wanted to point out right there. That tweet is wrong. That's not the case, and it's a little bit troubling to see the vice president say something like that because she's so involved, presumably, in these conversations about who should get what in terms of small business or micro business help.
So it would help if the language actually said micro businesses. You think that would help funnel some of these funds to
It
Black
would
businesses?
Yeah, it would. Well, that would definitely help, but it would also help if the SBA, under its new leadership, change the definition of small business. And then also, what would help is when the vice president was then a senator here in California, she helped author something called the SOS Act, which was I think it was called the Saving Our Streets Act, which was supposed to be inside of the HEROES Act, which the House passed back in 2020. 2020. That was supposed to be, the next big COVID relief bill, which never actually got passed last year. But inside of that HEROES Act, there was something called, I believe, the SOS Act, the Saving Our Streets Act, and inside of that, and the vice president was then senator was very much a part of this effort. It was going to target business resources, business funding, specifically to businesses that you could call micro businesses, that were the smaller of the smallest of the small businesses, and it had some other good features in it too. So what would help is if she would, urge her colleagues in the Senate now to bring that bill back up or include that bill inside of this American Rescue Plan, which the Biden administration, which her administration is fighting for. And I'm hoping in those conversations with those Black chambers that somebody from the Black chambers said this, or that somebody from her staff said this to the Black chambers, that hey, we're going to bring back this SOS Act. We're going to try to make it more targeted to the smallest of the small businesses, because our businesses, again, 95% of our businesses have no employees other than the owner, and we also have much less revenues than non-Black owned businesses, let's say.
Right. I know with the first round of PPP distributions, it depended on how many employees you had, what you qualified for. And a lot of the businesses who don't have employees, I don't even know if they qualified.
They did. They qualified technically, but they and so I was in conversations with some legislators around the time, and I kept saying in the conversations, and it kind of shocked them when they heard this. I said, here's how you design a structurally racist business funding plan. You make it based on the number of employees a business has, and you write the formula for how much the business gets based on the number of employees they have. And so that's what the PPP payroll protection plan did. It based largely not just if you got any money, but the amount of money you got based on how much employees you had, how much payroll you paid. So the larger your business, the more employees you had, the more money you got. The smaller your business,
some of those corporate businesses getting
absolutely. That's why we saw the Lakers getting it, and Roof Chris, and right, that's what happened. Another way to design a structurally racist business funding program is to base it on how much profit the business makes. All right, how much revenue the business makes in some cases, how much property the business owns. Right, these are ways to how good the business's credit is, how good the business owner's credit is. Right, these are some very easy ways to design a program that's going to cut out black businesses. And what we saw, as a result, some 90% of black-owned businesses did not get PPP funding that they asked for.
Right. So this is a way to create barriers to entry in the actual legislation or the
Yeah.
actual bill. Now, are there any advocacy groups that are, speaking to the president or trying to speak to the president's office about the SOS or the vice president's office about wrapping the SOS back into the American
Not
Rescue Plan?
not that I know of, and it would be very. I don't think it would be hard to put this into the American Rescue Plan. I don't know if it's a part of. So again, the American Rescue Plan, which is what we're talking about now, we don't have any official legislation yet, at least that I've seen. Right, we know there are negotiations going on, right, about what to put in the legislation. We know about potential price tags, 1.9 trillion versus 900 billion, et cetera, but we haven't, at least I haven't seen any text yet. And from my understanding, they want this bill to pass sometime before March. They're looking for sometime in March-ish. So I haven't seen any legislative text yet. So and I don't know if there are any groups that are talking. And this is why I was hoping that some of the black chambers would mention this, but I don't know of any groups that are talking directly to the White House right now about particularly micro businesses. I know there are groups here in California that talk to the state of California and talk to each other about it, but I don't know that anyone's talking directly to the Biden administration or speaking to them through through Vice President Harris.
All right. Well, maybe you got a couple of tweets to fire off after this.
Yes.
They know what they need to do. Okay. Well, let's take a closer look at some of the bullet points of this plan. All right. Specifically, President Biden's American Rescue Plan will mount a national vaccination program, contain COVID-19, and reopen schools, including by setting up community vaccination sites nationwide, scaling up testing and tracing, eliminating supply shortage problems, investing in high quality treatments, providing paid sick leave to contain spread of the virus, addressing health disparities, and making the necessary investments to meet the president's goal of safely reopening majority of K through 8 schools in the first 100 days. Deliver immediate relief to working families bearing the brunt of this crisis by sending $1,400 per person checks to households across America, providing direct housing and nutrition assistance, expanding access to safe, reliable child care and affordable health care, increasing the minimum wage, extending unemployment insurance, and giving families with kids and childless workers an emergency boost this year. Point number 3, support communities that are struggling in the wake of COVID-19 by providing support for the hardest hit small businesses, especially small businesses owned by entrepreneurs of color, and protecting the jobs of the first responders, transit workers, and other essential workers we depend on.
All right, Chris. So I gotta ask this question because about I think you know which one I'm gonna throw you so you can knock it out the park. So yes, the people of color. What is your interpretation of that? What does that mean specifically for Black people? Yes, sir. Throwing you the pitch right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna knock out the park, man. It means nothing if you have a program, or if you have programs, or if you have a bill. Ultimately, this is going to become a bill, right? This is going to become legislation. If you don't specifically target and don't explicitly say who you're talking to, Black folks specifically, right? And you don't also target resources specifically to Black folks. Or if you don't design the program in such a way that they have no choice but to go and flow to Black folks specifically. And I have a bunch of notes on the American Rescue Plan, but one thing to note about what you just heard there is that this is a very, I don't want to say typical, but it's a very we've seen these kinds of legislation before from Democratic administrations, right? So it's more, and obviously this has a COVID-19 focus, right? This legislation has a particular COVID-19 focus, at least the large majority of it. So let's take that into consideration, and to take into consideration that Black folks are very hard hit by COVID. But this is a very, I just gotta say it, trickle down, sort of liberal, plan wrapped up and sort of inside of a COVID-19 plan. What do I mean by that? So it actually goes right to what your question was. We are not specifically targeting Black folks anywhere in this legislation. That is a problem. The CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, is set to release its 100 days, plan for the Biden administration and for the CBC sometime this month. And I'm sure a lot of it's going to have to do with COVID. We had a similar problem with the CBC's COVID-19 response for Black folks, what we call the CBC COVID-19 Black agenda. It was not a Black agenda. There was almost nothing in there that specifically talked about Black folks. It was people of color, minorities, etc. This is more of the same, and it's more in that kind of vein here, where you have a bunch of stuff that sounds good, to be honest with you, but that is just expected somehow to reach Black folks and help Black folks more than others. Whereas, and as opposed to specifically saying, we want to, for a example, there within this plan, there's stuff about health, there's stuff about schools, there's stuff about jobs and financial assistance, there's stuff about housing and hunger and childcare, etc. And as opposed to having specific sections in ultimately the legislation, but in the plan right now that say this is specifically targeting Black folks, not people of color folks, not minorities folks, not disadvantaged communities, underserved communities, right? The sort of euphemisms and the code words that they use, and that wouldn't be hard to do for a Biden administration if that was a core value of theirs. And I think this is the first example, or maybe the second example, it depends on how you're counting, but one of the first few the first examples of how this administration looks at Black folks. Okay, not outside of us being the sort of a pot of voting gold, right? Just sort of where you go to get votes, but this is I think one of the more clear examples recently of what they think about us, and what they think about us is almost nothing here, because they don't talk to us at all in here. And this is and I want to say one last thing before we go further into the plan. This is part of what you get when you don't ask for nothing in return for your vote. You don't get nothing. Okay, this is what not just this plan, but the 30, 40 executive orders that we've seen in the past 2 weeks. It's not a thing in there for Black folks specifically. This is what you get when you don't ask for nothing and demand nothing in exchange for your vote. And it's hard to hold these folks accountable, quote unquote, now, even though we say that, and I don't think people really know what that means to hold people accountable. But it's hard to hold anyone accountable when you don't when you didn't say you wanted anything up front. It's so much harder on the other side now to say, hey, where's our Black section in here, right? It's much harder.
Well, Chris, you've said before that it's like illegal to do anything specific for a specific group, and that's why we're working on the ethnicity bill to carve out an ethnicity. But he seems to be able to sign executive orders for other specific groups. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
confused.
Yeah, that's only only in California. Well, not only in California, but California is one of the states where it's illegal to specifically use race to create programs, and that's due to Proposition 209, which was passed in 1996, that outlawed what we think of as affirmative action here in the state of California. Most recently, Proposition 16, which failed, which would have reinstated the states and local governments' ability to target and do programs specifically around race. So that's the state of California. But as you mentioned, Kim, the federal government can do a lot more. The federal government, especially through executive order, we saw this during the Trump administration. We've even seen this over the last first few weeks of the Biden administration, where they've done things specifically for specific groups of people, specific constituencies, and that's all well and good. You know, that trust me, you know, for those folks who are in those groups and got those particular benefits, more power to you. You know, but we are here with nothing now. At least in the first few weeks, we're here with nothing, and this is a big problem. And again, it is a part of it started before the election, though. We have to keep that in mind, because there was a large enough majority of us as voters, large enough majority of us as Black voters, not all of us, and I know not a lot of us who are here now and will watch this show, but there was a large enough majority of Black voters in other parts of the country that were willing to vote for Joe Biden without him saying anything about what he's going to put in his COVID-19 rescue plan for you and your family. Not, you know, for everybody who, you know, is not white, but specifically for you and your family, and people who share your history and your experience and your lineage and your race, right? Part of this started before the election, and we're seeing some of the fruits of that now. And again, it's much harder to say, okay, we already gave you what you wanted, you know, now give us something. It's much harder.
So what can we do to maximize our chances of getting the money when it is released, since everybody, you know, will be eligible for it, nothing set aside specifically for Black people. So what can we do to maximize our chances to receive this funding?
Yeah, I think we have to take at least a two track approach. So one, keep in mind that in less than 2 years, and you know, next year, 16 something like that months from now, there are going to be midterm elections. Okay, so we have another set of elections coming up in 2 years. Now, the president's not up for re-election in 2 years, but all 435 members of Congress are. You know, a third, I think, of the Senate is. So his party is up, excuse me, for re-election in 2022. Okay, and so one of the things I think we want to do is, as a way to hold folks accountable, is to make it known to legislators right now that if there is not a very significant, visible, measurable, tangible effort to direct resources to Black communities specifically as it concerns this American Rescue Plan, if Black folks are still 1 in 4 of all the deaths after being 1 in 10 of the population or so, if we're still you know, being hospitalized more, if we're still, out of work more, if we're still poor more because of this virus, that you're going to pay an electoral price. Specifically, you will not get our support if those are the conditions on the ground in 2022. And what your risk is, Congress people, is that you lose control of one of the branches of government or one of the houses of Congress that you control right now. And that's most likely to be the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives, and let's think back to the 2020 election here, the Democrats actually lost seats. The Republicans gained seats in the House of Representatives. Okay, they came closer to taking control over the House. They're close enough right now, going into 2022, to take the House. So if Democrats want to keep control of the House of Representatives, let's keep it real. The Senate is right now is tied 50-50. Okay, 50 Republicans, 50 Democrats. The tie-breaking vote for everything now is the president of the Senate, who is the vice president of the United States. That's what the Constitution says, right? So they're on a razor thin edge in the Senate also. Okay, even more so. So one track says we put real consequences, and I want to start using the word consequences more than accountability as we go forward. We put more consequences, and particularly we put the consequence of the Democratic Party losing the House and or the Senate in 2022 if there is not results on COVID-19 relief targeted specifically for Black folks, since whatever they have to do, whether they have to amend this American Rescue Plan or they have to put together a new plan, that's fine. Whatever you got to do it in the next 12 to 15, 16 months. Second thing we have to do, so that second track is those of us who are advocates, part of our job is we have to advocate no matter what, right? So even if, for example, we have been always saying, don't just give this guy your votes without anything, in return, because then you set up the advocates, and put us in a bad place, because then we have to advocate from like beneath the bottom. We still have to do our job. That's the job of advocacy. We have to be advocating and standing in that gap no matter what. So part of that second track is us advocates having to step up and do what we do best, which is advocate and actually influence policy, this American Rescue Plan in particular, not just the development of it, not just the passage of it, but the implementation of it, so that we maximize the amount of dollars that go into Black folks' hands. So it's really those two tracks. It's put consequences on these folks electorally and advocate like our lives depend on.
Okay, so you'll be rolling out some campaigns for us to work on.
Hell yeah.
Okay, all right.
Hell yeah.
I mean, because it's definitely, and that's why the name of the show is the old bait and switch, because they are definitely centering it on, Black struggle. I was on a Clubhouse chat today with Simone Sanders, and she was talking about the plan and everything. Oh, Black people are hit the hardest. Black people is black. But then it, was uplift for all at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the argument they make, and let's take a critical look at this argument in the time that we have left, because it's a very common argument, right? It's because we are in such a bad condition as a people, then when they do something, the benefits disproportionately help us because we're in a bad position. So they can do something for everybody, but because we're in such need, it disproportionately helps us. That's not true. Okay, or that's not always true. Let's put it like that. That's not always true, and it's not true in some very, very important cases and some very, very important ways. The system that we are up against, the system of white supremacy, right, is very efficient. It's very good at what it does. So what happens is when things are good, things when things are good for everybody, things are bad for us. When things are bad for everybody, things are worse for us. Okay, so we don't get the benefit when things are good, and we get worse when we get put worse when things are bad for everybody else. That reality has an effect on policy, right, and on legislation. But in this particular, talk policy. So when the Simone Sanders of the world and the Joe Biden of the world, who are doing their job selling their plan, right, are saying, hey, this is here's the Black struggle. We understand the Black struggle. We understand your history. We can tell you about your own history because we did it, but we can tell you about your own history, right, and what you're suffering now. And then switch, right? Here's what we're going to do for everybody. Oh, and when you say, hey, wait a minute, we're not everybody. They say, oh, but you're going to benefit disproportionately because, just because of, your condition. Again, that's not true. And to be honest with you, in some cases, that can make the problem worse. Okay. If you take a couple of notable examples, that can actually make the problem worse when you do this universal policy. And we have to get it through the heads of the policymakers, the Simone Sanders of the world, who's not necessarily a policymaker, but is close to them, that what they believe, if they believe it, what they believe about the effect, this sort of I called it earlier, this sort of trickle down liberalism, this sort of crumbs will, sort of flow to you, this sort of all, rising tide lifts all boats policy. We have to get it through their heads and show them that this is not true. And what they're doing is actually hurting Black folks.
Yeah, and it makes me think that they don't want to give us reparations because they want to continue to use our struggle as this, as their lead in everything. But
yeah, it's actually also and so I'll say one last thing, 10 seconds. It's actually also you made a good point. It's also part of the reason I think that they also use the Black struggle to sell policies for everybody is because it works. It works. It gets Black folks, to invest in it and support it, and then there comes the switch, right? But it does work.
okay, all right. And let's see, we have a little roundup of news here. Did you want to touch on the HR 40 petition and let everybody know that that's out in circulation and they should sign it?
Yeah, thanks for that. So yes, the campaign to fix HR 40 is in full swing. It always has been. It always will be. And right now, the public petition was officially released sometime, I believe, in the last week or so. We've got hundreds of folks already signed on. The link to the petition is we'll provide a link to it in today's video. But there's a video right before this one, or right before. So there's a video on this channel that we uploaded a couple of days ago that has the link to the petition in it. You can go to Fix HR 40 on Twitter, Fix HR 40 on Instagram, Fix HR 40 on YouTube, Fix HR 40 on Facebook as well to get the link to the petition. It's right here in front of you. Also, hashtag Fix HR 40. The public petition is out. We also have a campaign to enlist the support of organizations to help us get Congress to fix HR 40, HR 40 being the only federal reparations legislation introduced into the House right now. So if you are a member of an organization and you think your organization might be interested in helping to support the campaign to fix HR 40, send us an email at fixhr40@gmail.com. That's fixhr40@gmail.com, and we will get you our sign-on letter that's being circulated right now in Behind the scenes, we've got an endorsement from the campaign this week by Dr. William Sandy Darity, who's signed on to the sign-on letter. So this campaign is moving, it's growing. Thank you for putting the link up in the crawl there, fam. Appreciate it. Fix HR 40.
Okay. And then we talked about the American Rescue Plan. Ice Cube is scheduled to be speaking with Joe Biden. Do you know when that's supposed to take place?
Oh, can't come soon enough. I don't know when it is. I'm assuming it's going to be soon, if it hasn't happened already, and I'm hoping it's not only one conversation. I would expect that if the administration is smart, they would keep their lines of communication open with Cube. So I don't know when it's going to happen, but it can't happen soon enough, and it's a good thing.
All right. And then we talked a little bit about the 2022 midterm elections and how everybody is up for election. What do we do to organize and get ready for that?
I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that. Again, 2022, November, all 435 members of the House are up, a third of the Senate. Control of the House and Senate is up in 2022. Whether or not Joe Biden is a successful president in his last 2 years and gets reelected, or is unsuccessful in his last 2 years and is a one-term president, is on the line in 2022. You can mark my words there. So our job on the ground is one. Everything starts with awareness building, political education, right? That's where everything starts. So we have to continue to do that and step that up and build out the infrastructure to do more of that. And then it's about organizing, right? Bringing folks together around common ideas, a common agenda. And then it's about mobilizing once you understand what your common agenda is and your common ideas are, mobilizing either to, quote, hold politicians accountable or impose consequences on politicians who don't behave in the way that you want them to. And then it's also about some of the other things that you have to do to affect change, specifically in an election. And there'll be a lot more talk about all of that.
All right. And the last bullet point was Trump's impeachment. It looks like that's moving forward.
Yeah, today is the first day. Today is the first day of the trial. I believe, or yesterday or today is the first day of the trial. One of the two. But this week was the beginning of Donald Trump, ex-president Donald Trump, his impeachment, and there was a big question first about whether or not it's even constitutional to even impeach a president that's not in office anymore. I think the verdict on that is that it is constitutional and that the proceedings will go forward. But yes, this is the first week he is being he was impeached by the House, right? So let's be clear here. Donald Trump was already impeached by the House of Representatives, and right now this week is his trial in the Senate. Normally, when in an impeachment process, you get impeached and then you either are removed from office after a guilty verdict in a trial. He can't be removed from office, but there can be some consequences imposed on him. One is a vote after any conviction of him to bar him from running from any elected office federally, any federal elected office ever again. Also stripping him of some of his nice goodies and nice sort of benefits that all the ex-presidents get. And just the last thing I'll say is he's being tried for inciting the January 6th mob insurrection attack, coup attempt, whatever you want to call it. He's being tried for that. He was already impeached for it, and now he's being tried for that.
Okay. And as far as presidents that have been impeached, he's in the company of Andrew Johnson, another racist, Bill Clinton, and we've got Donald Trump again. He's been impeached twice. His name
Yes,
should be on there twice.
yes. He's the only president ever to be impeached twice.
All right, and I know we're getting close on time here. Just a little bit of information on the stimulus. I don't know if any of our audience members this will affect, because it looks like they may be phasing out the $1,400 stimulus for couples earning up to $100,000. That's a decrease from the first, and the second round of checks would start phasing out at 75,000. So if you earn $50,000 as a couple, it looks like you won't be getting a check. And as we know, $50,000 is barely a livable wage. And ADOS don't even make that much.
Yeah. This is and this is a part of the American Rescue Plan. Just the heads up, the $1,400, which we thought was going to be $2,000, right? That's what we were sort of told back in December and November. That they would be coming with a $2,000 plan. Now it's $1,400. There was a meeting last week with some Senate Republicans who made an offer for $1,000 checks, and so that's sort of where we may ultimately end up somewhere in the middle. Or Biden may stick to his guns and say no, 1,400 is my floor. So this is a part of the American Rescue Plan that we talked about earlier. And we will see. This is the income talk about how much you make and should you get it if you make more than 50,000, etc. This is a part of the sort of means testing talking that's going on right now. I am in favor of means testing some of this money just to make sure that it goes to the folks who need it the most.
Yeah, that does make sense. All right, and then lastly, Chris, I know you've been talking a lot about this racial committee. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about that. That's going to be happening here in Sacramento. As we know, back in November, the board declared declared racism as a public health crisis here in Sacramento. So they approved a resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis in Sacramento County. This committee that they're forming, do you think that they're going to be addressing this public health crisis issue as part of their discussions?
Yeah, I think they can't avoid it, to be honest with you, and I don't think we will let them avoid it, to be honest with you. I think and what you're referring to, just for the folks who need some context, is the city of Sacramento just recently approved a racial equity initiative, and this Saturday, by the way, I'm actually going to be doing I'm revamping and re-upping my old YouTube channel from way back, and I'm going to be doing a quick 15-20 minute explainer just on the racial equity initiative. So if you're here in Sacramento, you want to know more about it, join me this Saturday on my channel, same name, Chris Sacramento Organizer. And learn and ask questions about it, or just watch it when it shows up on your feed. But to your question, Kim, yes, absolutely. These two, the fact that the Board of Supervisors here in Sacramento County declare racism a public health crisis is going to have an impact, I think, on the city of Sacramento's new racial equity initiative. And I think it's our job as advocates to make sure that those two things are linked.
And can we leverage that in any way? You mentioned that San Francisco is getting a reparations task force together specifically for just the city of San Francisco. Can we pressure them to get us a reparations plan here in Sacramento?
Well, we can do anything we advocate for sure. And my motto is you get what you organize to take. Right, so I think it's up to us, and I'm in favor of local initiatives around equity and around justice, no matter what. So, but there is a way to use and I think this is going to be key for us when we are helping to influence this racial equity initiative, which we're going to be doing here in the city of Sacramento, to use what the county said, that racism is a public health crisis, and particular with talking about a particular type of racism too, not just, I don't like you because of the color of your skin racism. We're talking about structural racism, and we're talking about anti-Black racism. Let's keep it real. Okay, we got to be, laser focused on that, because otherwise you just, you may end up with the kind of outcomes and solutions policy wise that don't really do anything to improve the lives of Black folks here in the city and county of Sacramento.
Right, right. Well, I'll definitely be tuning in, and let us know if you need help with your production.
All help is welcome. All help is welcome and necessary. So yeah, feel free to help out. And yeah, we can definitely talk more about that. But this is Saturday at 11 o'clock. Saturday at 11 a.m. and we're just gonna explain it. I'm gonna go through the ordinance that the local city, law that was talking about it back in late January, and we'll just go through that and then take it from there. And then also, if anyone wants to organize and help, us influence it, we'll have a call to action. Here's how you get in contact, et cetera, et cetera.
So, are they going to be looking for people to sit on this committee?
Yeah, I'm assuming there are going to be. So I'm assuming, and I'm almost positive that there will be meetings with all kinds of stakeholders. I think there's a whole list of stakeholders, and I've asked that folks like us be included on the list of stakeholders. I've been in contact with some folks who work for the city who are part of this. So we are going to be helping to influence this in one way or another.
All right. Any last words? We're up on time here. Moya, Chris.
I don't think so. I think we got all the info. Oh, wait, we got one thing to do. We got to give a shout out.
The March of Reparations. It's going, fam. That's happening on the 14th in Washington, D.C. Yeah.
Yeah, go support. If anything, just go to the website. Check it out. They do have a donation option. Yeah, go support.
Support that. Tune in to if there's any. I'm sure there's going to be a social media presence and a social media content coming out of there. So definitely support that, and shout out to everybody who's working on that. The fight for reparations is important, and big shout out to the March for Reparations.
Now, Chris, why are they doing it now? Why couldn't they, organize a little bit later? Why February 14th?
So if you think about it, they actually had it planned for, I believe they had it planned for back in right around the time of the inauguration. That was, it was originally planned and scheduled to, sit right around Joe Biden's inauguration. I'm not exactly sure why they moved it forward. It may have been because of the the craziness going on in DC. Okay, so I'm thinking that has something to do with it, but I'm not exactly sure why they moved it to the 14th. But I think we should, think about having some of those folks on the show, and maybe afterwards talking about the march.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Definitely. I'm up for that. All right. Well, again, it is Black History Month. Happy Black History Month, everybody. We have been putting together, or Moya here has been putting together some Black History Month icons for every day of this month.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, today we have Catherine Johnson that we'll leave you with, but if you swing by our YouTube channel, 80CA Media, you can check out all of the Black History Month icons, and I hope you do. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Salute.
Thanks, fam.